Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
It's now 7:02. Shelby City Council meeting called to order. Please remain standing for a pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. Roll call, please. Mr. Crum.
Mr. Robb.
Here.
Mr. Roberts. Mr. Gates. Here. Mr. Martin.
Present.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here.
For the record, Mr. Roberts is ill this evening. I would ask for a motion to excuse.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Gates to excuse Mr. Roberts from the meeting this evening. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Motion to excuse passes. Thank you. I now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal for November 15th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. Gates to dispense with the reading of the journal for November 15th, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
That motion passes. We now come to the time for public comment. If anyone would like to address council this evening, either with a matter or perhaps a piece of legislation or a topic that is listed on the agenda later on, we had asked that you come now to the podium, state your name and address, and if you wish to speak to a piece of legislation or speak to a topic, let that know now and kind of reserve your time when that comes on the agenda.
Christina Drain, I'm the chair of the Shelby Historic Preservation Commission, and I think there's an item on the unfinished business concerning 22 West Main Street, certificate of appropriateness that we declined, and we'd like the opportunity to discuss that maybe in committee in the whole if we can.
That is listed on a Shelby Historic Preservation Appeal.
Okay,
That's what you're referring to.
thank you.
Thank you.
Jake Penwell, 168 West Main Street, Shelby, here representing the Community Improvement Corporation of Shelby. Always like to thank City Council and the administration for your support in improving the success of public-private partnership and leading that in Richland County. And so a couple of pieces that I'm here willing to answer questions for this evening. Ordinance number 36-2021 and resolution number 72-2021. Happy to entertain any questions during that legislation, but certainly as we enter into this time and we're moving forward with all of our wonderful restoration work and the revitalization downtown and all the great improvements that we're making on phase 1 and 2, we're moving into a time where we're asking City Council for their continued support financially, so that we can continue to move forward with this project, something that we had come to before with phase 1 with the commitment of $250,000, and we're asking for that commitment to come to fruition as we continue to move forward and make great things happen. So I appreciate your support always. Happy to answer any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Anyone else wish to address council this evening, either during public comment time, or later on in the agenda? If you do not speak now, we'll pretty much assume you're not wanting to speak. All right. Move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. The Community and Economic Development Committee met this afternoon. Councilman Block.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met about 3 hours ago, and it was a short meeting, but we discussed the certificate of appropriateness that we'll be discussing here under unfinished business here shortly, so I won't go over The other thing I'd like to just mention from the Shelby Historical Commission is that Pat Carlisle will be resigning at the end of the month, and they are looking to fill her position. And so at this time, I'd like to thank Pat for her service. That is all I have at this time, Mr. Mayor.
And I would echo those words. Thank you, Pat. Do I have any questions or comments for Mr. McLaughlin in regard to his report? If not, then we'll move forward then to Public Works and General Operations Committee. Councilman Roth.
Committee met on the 23rd and covered a variety of topics. First discussion was about some legislation that Councilman Gates brought before Council some time ago concerning trash containers. One person that's involved in that has been invited several times to the committee meetings and has yet to come, and so we're going to bring that back up at our next meeting. The invitation is open for him to attend. If he chooses to be there, it would be helpful. However, we are going to move forward with that, whether he attends or not. Mr. Geis advised that the city is in some negotiations with Croca and Associates concerning some engineering contract on an as-needed basis. And he's also working with a software provider to help them with the external property maintenance. That's going to help streamline that whole process. So that'll be helpful if we can get that online. We also met with ISO concerning flood insurance rates. That meeting was by Zoom. He can add more to that if he wishes. And also the finalizing the plans for the park. You see that legislation is on the agenda tonight along with those plans. And finally, we got a new used taxi. So that's in service, and hopefully that'll continue to serve us for a long time. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Roth, piggybacking on that taxi, we are now looking for a backup taxi driver, so if anyone knows of someone may be interested in that, they can approach us at City Hall and get a backup taxi driver in place. Okay, thank you. Are there any more comments or questions for Mr. Rob in regard to his report? If not, we'll move forward then to the Safety Committee. We won't move forward to the Safety Committee. Councilman Roberts isn't here this evening, unless someone wants to. Mr. Gates, do you remember anything off the top of your head?
Mayor, I was there, but was only there for a brief few minutes till I had to scoot to another meeting, so we'll pass this back to Mr. Roberts.
Noted fine. All right, thank you. Move on then to reports of city officials and the mayor's report. The full agenda, I'll keep it brief here this evening. I do want to report that we received an email from Molly Martin from the Xerxes Society for Invertebrate Conservation. Congratulations, Bee City USA is pleased to inform you that Shelby has met the standards to become an affiliate of Bee City USA. So it's now official and will be listed there. And a little bit later on, I'll describe what that brings, of course, to our city in dedicating a piece of land for pollinating habitat and also trying to curb the use of pesticides and so forth. So I'll say more about that later, but we are officially now Tree City and Bee City here at Shelby. The comprehensive COVID-19 report, the Shelby City Health Department is reporting COVID-19 documentation for a 5-day period from 12/02 to 12/06, with 42 new cases as well as 16 recovered resolved cases. The department has documented a total of 1,698 individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19. since the outbreak began in March of 2020. Of that cumulative number, 1,601 individuals have attained recovered, resolved status. There have been 46 COVID-19 deaths total documented from within our jurisdiction, 28 long-term care facility, and 19 for the general population. The department is currently monitoring 51 active cases, with one of those individuals hospitalized. And in that last 5-day period, there were no COVID-19 deaths documented. To give you an idea, that average is about 8 per day, and over the past 6 weeks, it's been around 5. So just give you an idea of the uptick here in our own city. So just wanted to kind of give you that little comparison there. And then please announce that Shelby will be hosting in 2022 the Spread the Light campaign. The idea of the campaign is to promote pride in our local safety forces, partnership in all of Richland County, and peace in our neighborhoods. It'll be held Sunday evening, January the 9th at 5 p.m., hosted at Rocket Chevrolet. And so we'll be spreading the news about spreading the light as we get closer. But wonderful, that's the first time that it's been hosted outside of Mansfield, Ontario. And so that's my brief report. Are there any comments or questions from me? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward then to Mr. Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. Mostly routine business around my office. As you can see in the agenda, a lot of legislation to kind of clean things up and get us straightened out for the end of the year. Couple reminders, if anybody has any purchase requisitions, we'd like all of those in by December 15th. So that way we can get all of our encumbrances and all of our payments made before the end of the year. Along the same lines, inventory count, we'd like it done on December 30th. So that way that's all straight for the end of the year. I have kind of started playing with appropriations a little bit. I don't have any numbers dropped in there yet, but department heads, if we could get on that, the sooner the better as we enter January. We've also been talking about getting some tax software, I'm sorry, a software upgrade in our tax department to allow e-filing of tax returns and e-payments of tax returns. We have a ordinance transferring some funds in the 283, the coronavirus relief funds that we have to spend by the end of the year. So I'll talk more about that at that point. I'd like to talk to that. Other than that, though, that is pretty much all I have, sir.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Crum regarding his report? We're going to move forward. It's nice to have Mr. Eichler with us this evening. Anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the administration, City Hall, Mr. Ensman, and the council for understanding what I've been out ill. It was a heck of a process. Still not back fully doing what I can, very fatigued yet. We'll do what I can, but certainly don't hesitate, you guys, if you think get hold of my office, we'll do what we can. Get fatigued, I'm probably going to leave here a little early tonight. I apologize. I'll do what I can here as we go.
Understand.
Other than that, nothing new to report. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sure good to see you. Are there any comments or questions? All right. Move forward then to Mr. Joe Geis, project coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the projects we have out there, the traffic signal project, our downtown enhancement, a lot of the same issues right now. Getting supplies is being very difficult. It's being very difficult even for our own line department. Doug was just saying the other day how I talked with the contractor for the traffic signal, and he's like, I can't even get PVC pipe right now. So that scares me with our big projects coming up this year and so forth and how that's all gonna work, but we'll keep pushing through to go through with that. Our lead service lines, I think we're still waiting on the final. That should be here very soon, so that our contractor is ready to start. And Mr. Rob brought up with our CRS, it's ISO has the program, and through FEMA we do go over and above for floodplain items, and that gives our residents a reduction in their rates on their flood insurance. Every 5 years, they come and pay me a visit and make sure we're doing what we're saying we're doing. So We did do that by Zoom, and I have a longer list of items to get to her by the 20th, so we'll be doing that, so that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Geis in regard to his report? Right, hearing none, we'll move forward then to new business. 2020 state audit. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, since council last met, the state auditor has released the state audit, has made it public. I want to go through and highlight a few things, and I do so for, first, the documents are addressed to the city council. So we have an obligation, I think, to review them, not in their totality. One document's over 100 pages. But at least to touch on the most important parts. And we do that because for accountability and for transparency. There is no intent, certainly on my part, to embarrass anyone or to shame anyone, but again, to be accountable and transparent with the public. This is a better audit than we've had the past few years. My colleagues, Mayor, and you will recall that the past few years we've gotten dinged any number of times where monies received by the city were not deposited within a 24-hour period, or by the next business day as required by law. That was a problem in the utility office, and started to get better there, and then they found that those deposits were not made in a timely manner from income tax. I'm pleased to report there's no such citations or findings or what have you in the audit as far as depositing money in proper time. So it's a better audit than we've had. The first thing when you get a state audit you look for is for a finding for recovery. A finding for recovery means that monies were either stolen or spent illegally. There are no findings for recovery in this audit, so that's the public can rest assured on that. But as you know, you're always going to have an audit. You're going to have a few things here, and that's what I wish to just to briefly touch on. We've got a very full agenda. I'm cognizant of that. These documents are available online, the state auditor's website, and if my colleagues agree, they'll be posted to the city's website. I'm looking at the 107-page audit document. There are two findings here. The first is a financial reporting, a significant deficiency. And I'll summarize here. I'm not reading the whole long section here. It says the city did not have sufficient internal controls in place to ensure receivables were properly reported, and as a result, the following adjustments were made to the financial statements. $113,851 increase in accounts receivable and charges for services revenue in the sewer fund. And then likewise, $113,851 decrease in accounts receivable and charges for services revenue in the electric fund. Additionally, one misstatement not requiring adjustment to the financial statements was brought to management's attention. The finance director is obviously aware of this, and he has addressed this matter. I don't know if he wants to add anything to this at this point. He's got a better handle on that than I do, certainly. But it was pointed out and has been addressed.
Mr.
Oh,
Clement.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Sorry.
Mr.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gates. Yes, that's essentially, we operate on a cash basis in the city. And then we send our financials to an accounting firm to be switched over to accrual, which is where accounts receivable comes in. So this was an issue at the accounting firm where they miscalculated which fund was in which. So in the future, I will be in contact with them a little better, and I will get a copy of their work papers before they are published, so that way we can get this corrected before the issue of license.
Thank you. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, the second finding, I'll read this in greater detail because it's, I think, more significant. Municipal court monthly bank reconciliations, significant deficiency. Sound accounting practices require that when designing the public office's system of internal controls and the specific control activities, management should ensure adequate security of assets and records and verify the existence and valuation of assets and liabilities and periodically reconcile them to the accounting records. The reconciliation of cash bank balances to accounting systems records, the book, to the accounting system is the most basic and primary control process performed. Lack of completing an accurate and timely reconciliation may allow for accounting errors, theft, and fraud to occur without timely detection. The municipal court maintains 2 bank accounts separate from the city's treasury through which the collection and disbursement of all monies for the municipal court are made. The clerk of courts is responsible for reconciling the municipal court accounting ledgers to bank balances on a monthly basis, and management of the city is responsible for reviewing the reconciliations and related support. Monthly bank-to-book reconciliations for the municipal court civil and criminal bank accounts were not adequately prepared or reviewed each month of 2020. I should note this is the 2020 audit, as here we are nearly through 2021. The monthly reconciliations completed for the criminal and civil bank accounts showed unreconciled balances that fluctuated each month, ranging from a negative $639 to a negative $7,760 for the civil account, and from $3,356 to $4,124 for the criminal account. Additionally, several reconciling errors were identified during testing of 2020 criminal and civil receipts and disbursements that were not accounted for on the reconciliations prepared by the clerk of courts. Failure to accurately reconcile monthly accurately reconcile monthly increases the possibility that the city will not be able to identify, assemble, analyze, classify, and record its transactions correctly, or to document compliance with finance-related legal and contractual requirements. Further, the lack of accurate monthly reconciliations increases the risk of theft and fraud over the cash cycle and could lead to inaccurate reporting in the annual financial statements. The clerk of court should record all transactions and prepare monthly bank-to-book cash reconciliations, which include all bank accounts and all fund balances. Variances should be investigated, documented, and corrected. In addition, management should review the monthly cash reconciliations, including the related support, such as reconciling items, and document the reviews. To put this in the simplest of terms, there are 2 accounts for which the clerk of courts has to balance the checking account. It's what most of us do or have done every month. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what's required. The problem is the amount that's unreconciled has changed from month to month. Now, as someone who has balanced a checkbook since Moses was a small child, 40 plus years, you know, if I was off a nickel this month and gave up, I was still off a nickel the next month. But here we see that the target is moving, and that's particularly a concern. So there were no findings for federal rewards. Again, there is a summary of what will be done. It's listed here. The next document is the management letter. I believe that's a 5 or 7 page letter. Let me just zip through this as quickly as I can. This comes under the classification of boring but important. So my apologies to the people in the gallery. Again, we have a cover letter. There is a non-compliance finding, and again, it has to do with the municipal court, unclaimed funds. Ohio Revised Code, section 1901.31G states that on the first Monday of each January, the clerk must list all cases more than 1 year past for which money has been collected but unclaimed. On the first Monday in January each year, the clerk must transmit notice of unclaimed funds to the party or to the party's attorney. Money still unclaimed each April 1st must be paid to the municipal treasury. The listing of unclaimed funds generated by the municipal court for the criminal and civil record accounts were incomplete and inaccurate, and the clerk of courts did not complete the annual required procedure for unclaimed funds as of the end of 2019. Failure to accurately account for unclaimed funds could result in misstatement of municipal court balances. The clerk of court should perform the appropriate procedures regarding unclaimed funds annually as required. Next, we come to a whole list of recommendations, pages that deal with IT. Item 1 is logical access. Item number 2 is antivirus software. Item number 3 is disaster recovery planning. And item number 4, service level agreement. Those are complicated. My assumption is, Mayor, that some of those items have been started to be addressed and will be taken care of. For the past few years, we've had any number of IT recommendations. So that is my summary, Mayor. Again, it is a good audit. It's a long time in coming. So at this point, I would move that the 2020 audit for the city of Shelby and the 2020 management letter accompanying that audit be received, placed on file, and posted to the city's website.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the 2020 state audit and the 2020 management letter be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Gates.
You're welcome, Mayor.
And then the new business. Hearing none, we'll move forward to unfinished business, the future use of Main Street Fire Station. There's nothing new to report this week. Move forward to award boundaries from the 2020 census. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'm wondering when we might, we being the council, might address this matter. 10 years ago, we did so in a committee of the whole. We had many more significant changes to be made than what's needed here, but we were done in 20 minutes.
Mr. Gates, you give the information to everyone.
I just gave it to you.
Did I not dispense that? We have the numbers. You, Mr. Gates.
I have it.
Yeah, you said it, Joe.
Did
Yeah. Good job,
You did a great job, didn't you? So, trying to think of the time frame that we have since the first of the year is going to be soon enough. Do you remember, Mr. Guys?
I think it was 90 days from October 1st. I could be wrong.
That's correct.
Next week. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, let me be so bold, to propose this. When you take the city's population and divide by 4, wards 1 and 2 were within like 2 people of that. The adjustments that need to be made are between Ward 3 and Ward 4. And at the risk of putting my colleague on the spot, I'm wondering if he and I might meet over coffee and take a look.
Mr. Martin.
So I was looking at the map and looking at that, and I honestly don't think it's that easy. Just the geography of where it lines up. Put it this way, I'm on the corner of that ward. So we're gonna have to look at, it's not just as easy as, taking out the, Granville or Extension or other words, like the places that Ward 3 should realistically geographically grow needs to be into other spaces, I think looking at the whole map holistically is gonna be a lot more advantageous than it's not an easy fix, I'll put it that way. Because I was looking at that myself. And where the numbers have to come from, it just doesn't make sense geographically speaking.
The committee of the whole is a good place to have the full discussion. I just wondered if a preliminary discussion might be best between Ward 3 and Ward 4.
Well, I've been working up my suggestions on that, a different model. So, for example, Ward 4 extends to, just south of here, that would probably make more sense going into Ward 2. And then I think there's a better, more holistic geographic way of looking at the different wards.
Well, no, Mr. Gates.
Well, let me ask this, who might be available next Monday evening?
Excuse me, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McCall.
why can't we just discuss it at the following Monday on the 20th at our council meeting?
Mr. Martin.
But Mr. Gates has posted he's going to be, he has surgery that
Oh,
day.
I didn't see that.
As fun as a committee of the whole meeting would be with a loopy Councilman Gates.
One wonders, Mayor.
I will say that the way that some of these districts are gerrymandered at the state level, you wonder if some of them weren't loopy when they drew those lines, but we would like to be a little bit more consistent at the local level, I think.
I'll jump to the defense of the people who drew boundaries on the state level. They can't excuse their behavior by saying they were buzzed.
If we are thinking of meeting Monday, perhaps an earlier evening, like more like 6-ish or 5:30-ish, Mr. McCall?
Maybe the 15th. We have a utility meeting that half of the council is going to be down at. Maybe after our utility meeting at 4:30 on Thursday the 15th.
That sounds reasonable. Looking at the 15th at 4:30 at City Hall for a committee of the whole to discuss ward boundaries. Sounds doable. I'll check with Mr. Roberts as well, but let's kind of pencil that. I'll write it down here.
And then let's go ahead and set a 5 o'clock on the 13th as an alternate if Mr. Roberts is not able to.
Okay.
5 o'clock on the 13th as
13th,
an
the
alternate.
13?
As an alternate. If Councilman Roberts can't do the 15th.